Megan Bliss, and I get asked this so much on my social media channels, but what is the most effective form of birth control, or what birth control doesn't mess with your hormones, or is the copper IUD a good form of birth control? So I am here to address copper IUDs today. Let's discuss the pros and cons of copper IUDs. I am a firm believer that women should be able to navigate pregnancy planning without going through a very difficult trial and error approach. Unfortunately, I get it. We have got to have cost-effective and efficient methods for birth control. I did my whole master's project on the barriers to adolescent sexual health, and so I did extensive research into this and why it is necessary and all of that. Unfortunately, there is not a one-size-fits-all approach. The unfortunate mistake that happens when it comes to most women and being started on birth control is that they are simply started on whatever that specific provider prefers, instead of her own personalized needs based on anatomy, hormone levels, detoxification abilities, all of that. This is huge. But let's discuss the copper IUD, or the coil, Paragard, whatever it's called, all of those things. It is a non-hormonal method of birth control, and its big advantage over other hormonal methods is that it actually does not contain any contraceptive drugs, no synthetic hormones whatsoever. And therefore, it permits natural ovulatory cycles, which is huge for hormonal balance within our body. It does not inhibit certain hormones and their processes so that ovulation can occur, which stimulates other hormones. This is a big win. So the next pro is it is effective 99.4% of the time. I don't know about you, but that number is actually pretty dang good when it comes to birth control methods. It can last up to 10 years after insertion. That's another big win. It can be used in women of any age. This is another myth that is circulating throughout the medical community, is that if you have not had a baby, you should not get an IUD, and that is absolutely 100% false. Is it the best route for every single woman out there? No, but that is a myth, and it can be used in women of any age. And last but not least, fertility can return to normal upon removal, which is a big win for a lot of women, because we definitely want to be able to prioritize and when and how we start having some family planning happening. So those are just some of the pros that are of the copper IUD. It's not an extensive list, but those are the main ones that I've seen. Here are some cons of the copper IUD. This procedure can be painful. I don't care who you are, but until you have had your cervix clamped, you cannot say whether this is a painful procedure or not. Because I myself have had my cervix clamped, and woo, that'll make you jump to the ceiling. Another con is cramping is a very common side effect after that. It can also cause heavier cycles after insertion, and this comes down to several reasons. One of them being if you insert if a copper IUD is inserted into a woman who already has an excess of estrogen, one of the estrogens floating around, one or more of the estrogens floating around, or they do not detoxify estrogen or copper effectively, it can cause heavier cycles. It can affect the vaginal microbiome. So I've seen it a lot where women who have a copper IUD inserted, they have a tendency to get more yeast infections, bacterial vaginosis, urinary tract infections. So, and this is not in every woman, but this is something that I definitely have seen. There are risks associated, including expulsion, meaning it falls out, uterine perforation, going through the uterine wall, and pelvic inflammatory disease. And that depends on the insertion process, on whether it was a good insertion process. Also what is happening infection-wise in the vaginal canal and that microbiome. This next one is something that is very commonly brushed aside or not even known in the traditional medical community: copper excess. So This is not tested hardly ever, and it is a big one. So when a woman either genetically or they are exposed to too much copper, putting in a copper IUD can cause a significant amount of anxiety or contribute to terrible periods and headaches or something like that. So copper excess is something that is a big one that is brushed under the rug, and there is not a streamlined approach to being able to navigate this. Also, last but not least, it does not protect against sexually transmitted infections. So I would like to say this is a no-brainer, but it is not a no-brainer, and many women tend to get sexually transmitted infections and think that the copper IUD should cover that, and it just doesn't. But the bottom line is, in a world where there are copious amounts of synthetic hormonal birth control options, this is one of the very few non-hormonal methods of very effective birth control. And I feel like that is something that a lot of more women should know or be told, is that this is a phenomenal option when you are nervous about getting pregnant, but you also do not want the synthetic hormones. Thankfully, there's a better way. I am the creator of the Bliss method to handle your hormones. And I really like to get a thorough evaluation of a woman's hormones, and then that can help navigate what types of birth control might be most effective and not create adverse reactions in women. So hopefully you are able to have a handle on your hormones and be able to navigate your hormonal health and your birth control seamlessly without issues.